Jujutsu Kaisen. All right, it is in a very interesting place right now as a story. I will say this is going to be very different, I feel like, from most of my videos, although I don't really script at all. This one's really going to be like just raw audio, kind of Jim Cornette podcast style. But there's been one lingering thought that I've had on my mind, one that I've discussed with Broken Ronin and Clyde. In fact, this discussion was meant to be a collab, but with Clyde being on the opposite side of the planet, as you can imagine, schedules are a little difficult to manage, but shouts out to both Broken Ronin and Clyde. I'll have their channels down in the description below. But one thing that I really had on my mind with the recent chapters before the last 2 or 3 was Gojo's return. And in fact, right before the chapter where he did return, I called it to Clyde. I was like, you know what, I think it's possible that he's going to return in the next chapter. I know I'm going to sound like LeBron when he said Kobe was going to drop 80 by saying that, but I on my mom, I called it. But there was one major concern with it, and that was when Jujutsu Kaisen took Gojo out of the story, immediately I loved the decision to do so. Because I think it's one of those things that when you have a character that's so powerful, and usually it's in the role of the mentor character and they are present, any sort of major conflict, they can deal with it. They can handle it. Therefore, whatever conflict is needed to push the protagonist either won't be done or is going to be done in a way that feels extremely unnatural, because you have to have conflict in order to make your characters grow, especially in a battle-esque type of series, right? A battle shonen. Where fighting is through which the conflict is done, right? When Gojo was taken out of the story sealed in the Shibuya incident arc, I immediately loved that decision because immediately afterwards, as we could see, Itadori's character was really pushed to his breaking point a few times, and the poor guy's continued to go through a whole lot of stuff. The way his character's kind of deteriorated since the start of the story is one of the things that I love. But now that Gojo's been brought back into the story, and sort of the pivotal moment in which the story is at right now, the concern that I have is I wonder how Akutami plans on balancing Gojo and Itadori. In the sense that if Gojo's back, and he's going to clearly be the strongest one on the protagonistic side of the story, the good guys, right, if you will, then how do you go about the story in keeping Itadori relevant? Because here's the thing. If Gojo comes back and he handles whoever he needs to handle, and then obviously it's leading up to the fight with him versus Sukuna, well, he can't just beat Sukuna, because then, again, that just completely makes Itadori relevant, it makes Itadori irrelevant, because even if Itadori were to help, the focus is going to be on Gojo. He steals the show every time, rightfully so, and if he's the strongest character, then he's going to do the majority of the heavy lifting. Not saying there couldn't be some beautiful character moments written with Itadori and some interactions between Gojo and Itadori. So it wouldn't be right for Gojo to just come back and deal with Sukuna easily. I think it will end up being a team effort, and what makes this discussion incredibly difficult, as it is with any character where this is sort of the problem you have, is that we really don't know how strong Gojo is, and we especially don't really know how strong Sukuna is. We know these two are the strongest characters in the verse, but towards what extent are they separate from each other in terms of strength? I have no clue. And everybody that I've talked to that pays attention to JJK a lot hasn't been able to really give me a solid answer either. Ronan actually did a video on it recently, which I probably should have checked out before doing this recording, but it is what it is. So the option of Gojo coming back and just getting rid of Sukuna is out the window. That'd be terrible. It would just kill the buildup of this great antagonist that you have. But then there's sort of this other possibility that I was kind of discussing with some people, and it's, what if Sukuna were to just get rid of Gojo? So obviously it wouldn't be like Gojo pops up and then Sukuna just kills him. It'd be comedic if that happened, and I don't think that's what Akutami wants to go for at all. But if anything, there could be the possibility where there is a major conflict that turns into some sort of team battle, and in some last-ditch effort to, handle Sukuna, Gojo does sacrifice himself for his students and for the future. Now, whether or not that would be the appropriate move, it's a little difficult, because then if you were to take Gojo out of the picture, then how could you realistically justify? Because if Sukuna handles Gojo, and Gojo is by far stronger than everybody else on the good guy side, then how do you justifiably come up with a reason or a way for Itadori or whoever to deal with Sukuna without it feeling like some sort of ass pull? And we've seen this sort of issue many a times before, right? You had the whole situation in Naruto with Madara's character. You also had the situation with Yuhaba, Yuga, the 1,000 different names that guy has in Bleach, where some people don't like the way that was handled. So it's sort of a little bit of a dilemma that I'm trying to figure out and sort out, because there's just so many different moving parts, right? Because it's not just Gojo, Itadori, and Sukuna. You have Maki, you have Kenjaku, you have Geto, and you have all these other characters as well who are going to be playing a part in this. But it's extremely... I find it extremely difficult right now to rationalize a way that now that Gojo's characters come back, that you can manage this and deal with it. I'm sure Akatami has something planned, but what, I'm not sure, and I think that plays into the benefit greatly of the story. But my major concern is that Itadori ends up feeling a little disappointing by the end of all of this. I'm wondering in which way can he overcome all of this. I've heard some discussions about certain characters being brought back from the dead, which I feel like one of the things that JJK really has going for it is, or at least from the discussion that the fans have regarding the series, is the things that it does differently from its predecessors. Now, if it works for the benefit of the story and it makes sense and it fits, then fine. But I don't really know how much people are going to love that idea. But yeah, that's pretty much the summary of my main concern is how this whole fight is going to go about in a way that's balanced. I can imagine this lasting for a very long time, considering, again, just all of the different moving parts that are going to play a factor in all of this. And the real key to all of this is how strong is Gojo too, right? Because I talked about this before. Like, it's difficult because we don't really know how strong Gojo is, and we definitely don't know to what extent how strong Sukuna is, because we don't really have a comparison to go off of from the top of my head. So it's like you have these two giant mysteries. People are theorizing that Gojo got a lot stronger because he did something while he was all sealed up, time moves differently or whatever the hell. But it's going to be really interesting to see. But it is something that I'm going to try and keep an eye on. I am excited that Gojo's been inserted back into the story. I think now was an extremely appropriate time and a really smart move by Akatami as well. That, or it was just a really well-timed coincidence that, you know, the trailer for Season 2 dropped, and then it's, like, announced, I think, like, a week later, or if not even just a few days later. My timetable could be a little off, that, you know, Gojo's back in the manga, which, again, just perfect timing, really, from a marketing standpoint. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where the story's going. I think JJK, as I talked about in my video like a month or two ago, was one that early on, I myself, you know, because before a story finds its identity, you compare it to its predecessors and what it reminds you of, in good ways and in bad ways. But I think so far it's been a story that's really carved out its own identity, and I can't wait to see how it continues to do so. But I think it's currently at a very delicate stage within its story where a lot of things could possibly come off as disappointing, but that's really any story once you reach sort of the end game portion of it. But yeah, just sort of my thoughts off the top of the head. Sorry if it wasn't the most professional video, but this is sort of what I felt like doing. But as always, this has been The Masked Man. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and peace.